Ladies and gentlemen, we are about ready to start, so please take a seat if you are looking for a seat. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to the Chiswick Area Forum. My name is Councillor Ron Mashiso, and I'm the chair of the forum. Absolutely. My name is Ron Mashiso, and I'm the chair this year for the Chiswick Area Forum. And I would like every one of you, I would like to invite every one of you to the meeting, and I hope that many of you will be able to speak later today, and I hope you had a chance to have a conversation with the stallholders and receive some useful information and advice. As it's now past 7:30, we'll move on to the formal part of the meeting. Hopefully you saw the outline of the agenda behind me earlier. Please note that this meeting is being recorded and will be made available for viewing on Hounslow Council's YouTube page in the coming days. And so for tonight's proceedings, as chair, I'll be running the meeting and inviting people to speak. As we have a full and interesting agenda, I endeavor to allow as many of you as possible to speak. Please also note that the open forum is right at the beginning, which means that hopefully more of you stick around for that part. And of course, you're more than welcome to leave after the open forum has ceased. As we have a large number of people at present, it may, of course, not be possible for everyone here to ask questions due to time constraints. Therefore, there are evaluation forms available on your seats and with a box at the back, where you can write down any questions and provide your email address, and a response will be sent to you directly. Please do use the sheets to submit any unanswered questions and hand them to our community development officers. I also spot that there is a few themes that are starting to emerge at the back of the room. Hopefully, some of those questions you put up, we can discuss in tonight's forum. Now, the people around the room from the community group are walking around. Maybe a wave of hands, who they are. So those are the sort of people there that you could direct any questions or sheets to. Okay. And so before we continue, then can I ask for apologies of absence, please?
Okay, so we've had apologies from Councillor Amy Croft. She had a clash of meetings. She's attending the Labour Party conference today. And we have apologies from Councillor Jack Emsley and Councillor Ranjit Gill.
Thank you very much. And declaration of interest or any other communications. Can I just declare before that this is my own suit? I bought it myself. just so that everybody knows. Go ahead.
I wish I could have a new suit too. I've got a communication. It's about a local area, and I'd like to thank the representatives of the Abinger Road Association for bringing it to my attention. I beg your pardon. Here we go. I'll bring it right under. Here we go. Is that better? All here? All right, I'll start shouting otherwise. So the Abinger Road Association of Residents has been very concerned recently over the gross increase in traffic, mainly because of sat-navs avoiding low-traffic neighbourhoods and coming up through Chiswick on their way to and from Chiswick Bridge rather than Hammersmith Bridge. And the traffic has increased dramatically. The communication is quite simple. I was asked to present a petition to the Borough Council, and this went through on March the 26th. Unbeknown to us, the council was in the middle of preparing a different way of dealing with petitions. So we heard nothing from the council until relatively recently. And last week we had a borough council meeting. So my communication is to the residents of Chiswick, if you're waiting for something done about traffic and transport, then unfortunately, if you've done a petition, you're going to have to wait a bit longer. We then had a list of petitions that were going to be looked at by Councillor Catherine Dunn and Councillor Shivraj Goul, who are the two councillors in charge of traffic and transport in Hounslow. That covers Chiswick. And there were 3 of them, but missing was the Abinger Road petition. So I've made a formal complaint to the Chief Executive on behalf of the residents of Abinger Road, and I will try my best to find out, with the help of the committee clerk here, who's been actively searching for the route that the petition took, to find out what happened. We have got copies of the original petition, so there's no problem in actually replicating it, but the original petition went in March, and it's now September. That's 6 months. These are the people responsible. And I can't say any more than that, except to apologise on behalf of the council to the residents of Abinger Road for this, what the Americans would call a snafu. And I'm sorry to start the meeting with that particular item, but it's an important one for everyone to hear, that sometimes the administration doesn't actually work to best practice, and that's an example. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor McGregor. Yes, I completely agree that this may have been an error, perhaps. Can I ask what you think we should do next on this? Should we put it on an issue tracker, perhaps, and follow it up?
Well, I've contacted the Chief Paid Officer, the Chief Executive, to ask for an investigation, and we are rating a response from some of the parties involved to see if they've actually received the information that we presented at the Borough Council on March the 26th. But I fear that, given the lack of action, it's quite likely that this just went into...
It's not clear enough.
Okay, let's sit down.
Who was that?
It's me.
Good.
I live in Wellesley Road, and I have done for very many years. You really want to know what you're talking about.
Okay.
Because we don't know where you're coming from. Or
Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, okay.
Sit down, please. Thank you, Councillor. Okay, I understand you can't hear the back, so I'll be very brief as to what's going to happen with this issue, which is a petition that Councillor McGregor and a group of residents in the part of Chiswick, whose petition has been ignored, but we're not sure whether that's deliberate or by error. And I'm suggesting that we put it on what we call the issue tracker, which means as a forum here, we'll keep monitoring it as Councillor McGregor investigates exactly where that petition has ended. So far, no action has been taken, so we'll leave it on our issue tracker and allow Councillor McGregor to chase that up and hopefully come back with something. So we'll end it there. We'll end it there. Thank you so much, Councillor McGregor. Now, I'm moving... Abinger Road. Yeah. Abinger Road. Abinger Road. And Councillor McGregor will show you the petition directly if you are interested. Now, I'm going to move quickly onto the actual items of issue tracker. Don't worry, guys. This is the boring bit, so we'll get there. We'll get there. Issue trackers, everybody. We have a number of items that we have put to follow up as a group of councillors alongside officers, and we are at the moment, some of these issues have been on the panel for years. So we've decided, thanks to intervention of Councillor Giles, to actually name some people who can actually take this forward on our behalf and on your behalf. So the first one is the, where should we go with the abandoned bikes, enforcement of abandoned bikes. So this is an issue of e-bikes being abandoned all over Chiswick, and it was raised by residents here, and they were not being left in, because they were not being left in designated e-bike charging parking bays. And this was something that we agreed that we will chase up to see if there's any enforcement that can be reached. Who would like to take that case? Thank you so much, Councillor Thompson. So can we put that for Councillor Thompson? So we're going to try and get to the bottom of that and see if we can reinforce that. The no more may is slightly different. It's something that was raised by a local resident and former councillor who questioned when the no more may would finish and the mowing would begin. But luckily we have Tim Hurley here, who is from Hounslow Highways, who can give us a bit more of an explanation of what this is and what the changes are and what has been done about it.
Thank you, Chair. So No Mo May finished in May in 2024. The first cut would have started in June, so it may have taken a couple of weeks for that cut to come through, and because it's the first cut of the year, the first cut can take a little bit longer, but No Mo May, in terms of when the decision was taken not to mow, was in May. But I think the question appeared because the year before we did have some issues. We'd recently taken the grass cutting service in-house, and No Mo May extended actually through April, May, and a bit of June. So there were some issues. We took those lessons on board into 2024. We assigned an extra grass cutting team, and we also reduced the areas for No Mo May in 2024. So instead of all grass in Chiswick, in Hounslow, not being cut in May, it was left down to larger residential areas, larger verges. Smaller verges in residential areas were cut from May onwards.
Thank you, Tim. Councillor Bidoff.
Can I just add to that? Because I do know there are an awful lot of residents who think that No Mo May continued this year. Obviously, we're going to be coming up to weeds shortly. But what they did, the council called No Mo May this year natural summer, and they reduced the number of places that weren't going to be mown. So there should have been an improvement in some places. And some of the places that weren't mown, you've just explained, are on parks, for example. Areas were left to grow wild. Should have been less this year. But it was called natural summer rather than No Mo May this year.
So does the panel agree that we can put it on the issue track and or finish it off? Are we satisfied with the answer? Yeah.
I propose we remove it. If we need anybody to second it, I don't know.
Okay. Just, we've agreed to take that off. Thank you so much, Tim, for that feedback, and thank you, Councillor Bidoff, for point of clarification there. Okay, the next part of the issue tracker. This is the zebra crossing at Fisher's Lane. This has been here ever since we were elected 6 years ago. This is, Councillor Bidoff, do you mind just to briefly explain to the audience members what this is about?
Yes, indeed. So there is a crossing on Fisher's Lane which goes in 3 directions to the triangle in the middle of the road, closer to at the corner of Dolman Road. And it's where an awful lot of particularly older people live, either in Homecross House or in Jessup House. And their journey includes going to the pharmacist, which is on the 3rd bit of the triangle. It was taking years. It was actually on the agenda long before we were elected. It was Councillor Thompson will remember that, so will Councillor Todd and McGregor. It's been here for ages, and one of the things that happened was when the development of the health centre came up, I had a meeting. They invited councillors to go and meet the developers. And one of the things I said was, could you not include those crossings in the development? And they agreed to do that. It was in the plan, so it's been approved. It is now just a watching brief, as far as I'm concerned, to make sure that the zebra crossings are, in fact, installed when the Chiswick Health Centre is finished.
Thank you, Councillor Bidoff. Can I ask that you take that up? Thank you. And the next one is the notification on Fix My Street app. Now, many of you in the audience do use Fix My Street app, and I want to thank you so much, and it does help. Sabil and Tim, I'm sure, who will be speaking later, will mention that perhaps. But there are glitches, and Councillor Bidoff did raise this issue of too many notifications being sent to various emails, and whether those glitches and so on have been fixed or not is something that we wanted you to continue on that. Can you speak briefly on that, please?
Yeah. So the biggest issue, I think, is that most people are infuriated when they get the closed message and the task hasn't been done. And we don't know whether closed means it's been logged or will be happening in the future or has been ignored or has been passed on to another local authority. It does require some IT changes, which may well be expensive, but we've been talking about it for a long time, and it is the thing that drives residents most angry, most irritated. Sorry, badly constructed sentence, but makes residents irritated.
So hopefully Sabil and Tim, we can maybe address that now or shortly. Yeah.
I think it's something we are aware of. There is certain status which are closed but actually assigned, and I think it's agreed that if it's causing confusion, then we should take that away and come back to you with a plan. I don't think it will be expensive. I just think it's a little bit of logistical analysis about how we assign inquiries. Okay?
Thank you. Do not be alarmed. Please continue using Fix My Street. It's really, really useful for all of us. And then the next one is the waste from Mogden Sewage Works. This is an item, again, local residents raised about waste being released into the River Thames. And thankfully, since this has been on the item in September 2023, we have Councillor Giles, who is now been made the chair of Thames Landscape Strategy. So, Councillor Giles, do you mind just explaining to the audience just roughly what this waste from Mogden Sewage Works issue is and how we get to the bottom of it?
Yes, thank you very much. So I hope you can all hear. My voice seems very loud. I don't know. Anyway, there have been concerns over dumping of water by Mogden into the Thames during rainfalls. And last year, there was a consultation to look at using treated water as part of a water extraction programme that went to public consultation. The results still haven't come out, but I would be willing to keep this on the tracker and take this as an action going forward so we can get better insight. There's a number of other projects we're working on, such as water testing further upstream so that we can have alerts when it comes to Chiswick. So even though we already have water testing at Chiswick Pier Trust, which was installed by the EA a number of years ago.
Thank you so much, Councillor Giles, and congratulations on being chair of the Thames Landscape Strategy. So the final one is the contactless card parking machines. Now, I've used some of these already in Chiswick. Oh, I beg your pardon, if we just go back a little bit. There's someone in the audience who would like to ask a question. Could you be really loud, please? I'll repeat the answer once you say it. Okay, hold on one second. No. Just for the recording, let's just get you on record.
Thank you. Sam Hearn, could Councillor Giles clarify for the record the difference between untreated sewage coming out of stormwater tanks when there's been heavy rain and the treated water that will always come out of the sewage works and into the river and has done for many years?
Thank you, Sam. Due to tank overflows at Mogden, Thames Water are allowed to dump water into the Thames at high rainfalls. Whether they always do that or not is a question that is under further scrutiny. And then if we look at the treated water that is often dumped, this is water that has been chemically treated and then dumped and then let off. So effluent may come into the Thames, but it is treated. With this consultation, it was actually about tertiary extraction. So the plan was to take water out of the Thames to reduce the level of water in the river and bring it up to a big reservoir up in Watford, where the water would then be treated a third time with chemicals and then brought back down to West London and put into the water. Thames Water have said that it would help with rising water levels of the river, but there are concerns about the damage that the chemicals used may cause to local ecology and biodiversity.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. If we want any further, we can use that in the open forum shortly. But just the last one is the contactless card parking machines, and we think we've got to the bottom of it, but Councillor Biddulph has kindly suggested that she will look back at the minutes plus the video, the recording of the last meeting back in March, to see exactly what the issue was. It's probably to do with 30-minute parking, was it? Okay. Okay, that ends.
Can we add a bit on the 30-minute free parking? Because even though it does exist, residents still have to pay. It's 15 pence.
That's, I think, what this is supposed to say, but I'm going to go back and listen to the
Yeah, I
recording
don't think
again.
we clarified that point at that time, so maybe
I
it's...
did.
Yeah,
I did.
Okay.
Thanks.
Let's have a show of hands in the audience. About 30-minute free parking. How many of you would be supportive of that? Okay, how many would not support 30-minute free parking? It's something we used to have before. How many of you are undecided? Okay. Okay, there's... You and me both. Councillor Biddulph.
There are some places in Chiswick where you can get 30 minutes free parking. Turnham Green Terrace, Devonshire Road, for example, if you can park for 30 minutes free. Before these the new payment system came in, you used to be able to press a green button and a ticket would come out with the time that you had to end. With this new pay-as-you-go system, that ticket isn't forthcoming. You have to still log it in the machine. But we've heard, I'm afraid I don't have a car at the moment, I haven't tried to park one, so I can't verify this, but others have said they get charged an admin fee for booking free parking. So that's what I'm trying to clarify.
So we'll put it on the action tracker for Councillor. Can I leave that with you then, Councillor Biddulph? Thank you so much. Okay, so that sets us out for item number 3 of the. But before I go any further, I would like to say a really massive thank you to Wild Bunch, who have provided us with the refreshments and all the lovely delicates that you've just had as you were sitting down. Just want to say thank you so much to Wild Bunch. They're based just opposite the church, opposite the phone boxes, the red phone box. If you ever want to go in there, you get a free, what is it? You get a free something. I forget what it was. A cookie. You get a free cookie.
They shouldn't be doing anything free.
Right. Once you buy a coffee, you get a free cookie. Anyway, moving on to our big agenda item, and we've brought this forward before the area forum, so please stay with us. This is about Hogarth Roundabout, the consultation which just recently ended. We're very fortunate to have representatives from TfL who are here today. And I would like to invite Andrew Hatch and Timothy McKay to give a brief update on the plans following the consultation. Take it away, gentlemen.
Thanks, Ron. I wonder if I can edit my volume here, but if not, I'll just... That's fine. Cool. Thank you. Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Andrew. I work for Transport for London in our engagement team. And I'm here with Timothy McKay, who's in our sponsorship team. So he looks after the investments that we make in Hounslow and a few other London boroughs. And Timothy and I work together across a range of different projects. One of those projects is, of course, the Hogarth Roundabout scheme. So as Councillor Moshiso just said, we have run a public consultation on these proposals this summer. It opened on the 11th of July and it recently closed on the 12th of September. It was for a local scheme, a scheme that is with a hyper-local focus like this, like a junction scheme, a very well-engaged consultation. We had just shy of 1,000 responses, which is a really high return rate for a local scheme. We are currently working our way through those responses and in due course, and I think with a fair wind, I'm probably looking at around late November or December, we will be publishing a consultation report, and that report will outline the general themes of the issues that were raised by the respondents and what our responses to those issues are. And it will also outline our next steps. As I sit here speaking to you this evening, I don't know our next steps because we are genuinely still working through those consultation responses. What I am here to do this evening is to hopefully provide you a bit of reassurance that we have heard the concerns that have been raised about 2 or 3 aspects of the design, and I'm happy to go through those in a moment. And just to say that we are listening to those and we are sensitive to those concerns, especially around the church and local businesses in the area. And we're currently thinking about potential solutions to those problems. What I'm not here to do tonight is defend the scheme or be evangelical about the scheme in any way. Our ears are very much open, and I think that over the years we have demonstrated, the royal we, that is, TfL, not just Tim and me, a good track record of responding and adapting our plans to concerns raised at consultation. So it is not a fait accompli. We are still very much at the drawing board. What we presented for consultation, and that's what you can see here, and there's a couple of other slides I can show you as well, is a concept for a scheme. It's not a final design. So we are well aware that there will need to be some flex and some evolution of these concepts if we decide to take it to the next stage. That will only be announced, as I said, at that consultation report stage, which will be coming either November or December. It would have been earlier than that had we not got so many responses, but I think that's just, democracy in action. So that's a really good thing. Because ultimately we'll end up with a scheme, if we decide to go ahead with it, that should work for people in the local community. So we have got, this is the most zoomed out view of the scheme, and there's a couple of other slightly more zoomed in views of it. This is all still available on the TfL Have Your Say website, which should be available through the agenda, or if not, certainly it will be through the minutes for this meeting. So you can still very much interrogate these designs and download the PDFs and zoom right in and have a good look. Essentially, the reason why we proposed this scheme is safety. That's the number one driver behind this proposal. Hogarth Roundabout as a junction is in the top 10% of all junctions in London for road danger risk. That is to say, it's less safe than 90% of London's junctions as a whole. It was originally part of our Safer Junctions scheme, so many names, Safer Junctions program of schemes. We have now pretty much done all the low-hanging fruit from that program, so we now have to move on to the more challenging locations, this being one of them. So, what we have proposed here as if you like, a starter for 10, it is imperfect, and we do recognize that. There is no such thing as a perfect scheme. But what we hope that this will achieve is a couple of specific things. So one, I don't think I have a laser pointer on here, but if I did, I'd be pointing to the top of Church Street, which is, I don't know if you can make this out, I apologize if you can't, but it's the orange and red box just below the black hatching on the southeastern corner of that roundabout. That's the top of Church Street. So what we're proposing to do there is stop up that entrance. That will allow us to take a little bit of land off the southern edge of the roundabout and a little bit farther east along Mawson Lane, and that will enable us to build a 4th traffic lane. Why is that important? Because the main cause of collisions here, and there were in the reporting period July 2020 to June 2023, 18 collisions on this roundabout. 3 of those were serious, and 1 of those involved a motorcyclist. People on powered two-wheelers, aka mopeds, motorcycles, what have you, they are the most at-risk user group here at this roundabout. And the reason for that is because in its current 3-lane configuration, we see a lot of lane jostling, a lot of side swipes happening, and there's a lot of HGV traffic that uses this roundabout because it is, as we all know, a strategic route into and out of London. And so a lot of those vehicles are so large that they take up more than 1 lane width of space, and that creates a huge risk point for motorcyclists, and that's what's being borne out in the data. And those numbers I've said, by the way, they are the corrected figures. So that's the main thing that we're going to be doing here if we take this forward. The second thing would be to reduce the speed limit from 40 to 30 mph. Speed, as data from all around the world will show you, is one of, if not the major factor in all serious collisions. And we've got the Vision Zero pledge under this mayor to do everything we can to reduce the number of people getting seriously hurt or even dying on London's transport network down to zero. And so this very much forms part of that. They're the broad strokes of what we're proposing. There are other bits and bobs in here, such as greening, which is not just a nice to do anymore. We have to think about surface water and where that's going to go as the climate changes. We'll be doing a deep cleanse of the subway as well. It's already got CCTV in there, so we'll be making sure that that continues to make sure that people, especially women and girls, are safe and feel able to use that even in the evening. Cycle parking and places to sit, etc., are also part of this at a high level. But you know, it is still up for grabs.
No, thank you very much. There's a lot there to take in, and thanks for giving us the broad strokes. But I think one of the comments alerted a member of the public to raise a question, so I hope you don't mind taking this question first.
Andrew, I'd just like to play back some of the things you and your colleagues have said at the 4 consultation events at the Hogarth House over the summer. So thank you, first of all, for hosting those events. But from what you've said just now, that contradicts what was said during those events. So going through some of the items, at those events you mentioned the data that you received about accident reports. And we have access to that data, and it is very, in some instances, not specific enough to identify what junctions the accidents happened at, what the causes of those accidents were. Is very much macro data. So to be able to say, as you just have, which particular nodes, that is places where roads enter the roundabout, where those accidents took place, I think is a bit disingenuous. That's my first point. You also said at the events that the closure of Church Street was not linked to the new proposed 4th lane, and that lane could go in whether Church Street was opened or closed. Is that correct? And that the Church Street closure was one that was about improving things for cyclists and pedestrians specifically. I could make some more points, but I think what you've said today even contradicts what's been said at the events, and
okay, thank you.
contradicts paperwork too.
I'm sorry to cut you off,
That's
but
all right.
we need to get through quite a few points. But thank you so much for raising those 3. Can I invite Timothy and Andrew to respond, please, directly at those 3 points?
Yes, absolutely. So, yeah, I think firstly I'll take the question about the collision data. And I agree with you. Some of that data is relatively nebulous. We do take a data-led approach when it comes to where we prioritize investment. That said, it isn't just there isn't just one data point that we use. And in fact, we have engineers that monitor the junctions by camera for hours and hours that also inform these proposals and where to direct our investment. So the data that we use is Stats 19 police data, and that's recorded by the police after a collision has occurred. And occasionally that is, I'll use the word again, imperfect. So that is very much used as a starting point. And then from there, we identify, okay, so we've got a cluster of collisions happening in X or Y location. Let's have a closer look at that. And so we observe the behaviors of motorists there, and it's done over many, many months. It's not just done over, we don't just take a spreadsheet and say, okay, that's got the highest number of collisions on the police website, let's spend £5 million there. It doesn't work that way. So there's other data points that go into that. So yeah, I agree with the point that was made about the collision data. But you know, as I say, hopefully that reassures you that we don't just use that. There are other factors at play here as well. Your second point was about Church Street, the stopping up, I should say, not closure of Church Street, not being necessary to facilitate the building of the fourth lane. I think I'll bring Timothy in here. He's the sponsor for this scheme.
Yeah, so in relation to the Church Street, so the initial design it looks at, it assumes the closure of Church Street because we're still awaiting a structural assessment of the flyover. So depending on the outcome of that, it will dictate how much into the roundabout we can cut in, because there's a pier that supports the flyover, which is on the southern side. That's of concern to our structural engineers in terms of how close we can get to it. Once we get that report back, we'll have a better idea of actually how much we can cut into on both sides of the carriageway there, and it may allow us to look at potential options around Church Street. But at the moment, what we're working with is an uncertainty around how much into the roundabout we can cut into. Once we get that structural assessment, which is due next month, we'll have a better idea of what we can do, and that's part of a detailed design process.
Thank you very much. Please. Oh, have you got a microphone?
You're number 2.
Hi. I live on Staveley Gardens, which is just off the A316 and quite close to Hogarth roundabout. I have to say this is the first time I've heard of this scheme, so I have no idea why in our area we didn't know that this was going on. I can't unfortunately read your diagram. I'm concerned if you do have road closures that you do try to remember that there are people that need to drive down these roads. As a disabled driver, I can't access anything without my car. And the other thing I wanted to mention is that there is a terrible traffic problem on the 316 coming into London up to the Hogarth roundabout ever since the low traffic neighbourhoods cut off all the routes. And whether it's the weekend, any time of day, there's a major problem. I use that roundabout all the time to get into London, whether by a taxi or whatever. So I am a little concerned that these things are going to be, I'm worried about roadworks, what that's going to do to the traffic, seeing as there's only one route now that can be used.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for raising that, and I want to reassure you that this scheme is not, a Trojan horse for traffic reduction. That we don't want to be evangelical about getting people out of cars with this particular scheme, because actually this is unique for us in that we are proposing an additional traffic lane. That's very, very different for TfL. I can't even think of another example where we've built an additional traffic lane in recent years. And one of the reasons for that is that traffic congestion problem that you're talking about. This is a strategic route into and out of London connecting to the M4, and we see terrible congestion through Hogarth roundabout, as I'm sure you've all experienced, and we've wanted to do something about that for many, many years. So we certainly don't want you to be worried that we're going to make your life any more difficult than it already is as a motorist. So, I hope that reassures you. It's not going to be death by 1,000 cuts, so to speak. We're not going to be proposing to stop up X, Y, and Z road after this. This is about addressing motorcyclist safety first and foremost. And also, as a happy byproduct, we hope to improve the flow of traffic, especially to that M4 connection.
Thank you. Pamela.
I don't actually need a mic. This is a preposterous proposal, and as with so many proposals of this kind, it is perfectly obvious that the people who've designed it are pretty intent on it going through more or less as they first thought of. Hogarth Roundabout is our local roundabout. The clue is in the name. Chiswick Village is where Chiswick started. Very, very, very old area and an important part of the local populace and the local economy. What you are proposing to do, if I've properly understood, is people who live in Chiswick Village or visiting Chiswick Village or wanting to go to the church or to a funeral or to a concert or whatever it might be, are going to have to drive a little way round the roundabout and then come to a dead halt and do a 180-degree turn into a little facilitating road that you're going to provide in front of the pub for the people to go back to that area. Have I understood that correctly? Please just answer yes or no.
Before you answer yes or no, just to clarify,
Could you answer yes or no?
Pamela, please, the chair has...
Sure.
Yeah. She means old Chiswick Village, not the new Chiswick Village. So just a point of clarification. Church Street. Okay.
Old Chiswick.
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Right. Thank you very much for answering that so straightforwardly. So what's going to happen is that you're going to, reduce the speed limit to 30 miles an hour. Good luck with that. Who on earth controls speed limits in London? Absolutely nobody. Nobody controls the 20-mile-an-hour speed limits round our local streets. People fly down our streets. That's another problem. So you're going to facilitate traffic going round that roundabout, going down the A316. But if I or a neighbour or anybody else is going to want to do that 180-degree turn, what's going to happen? We're going to have to come to a dead halt with a 38-ton truck behind us, maybe, who's awfully happy that he's been given more space to go round the roundabout.
Thank you, Pamela. Can we...
Please...
I hear your point,
no,
but we need to get to the question.
Please let me... Well, my question is, how does he propose that people who are going to have to do that 180-degree turn aren't going to get shunted from the back? And the other question is, or rather comment, motorcyclists have accidents, it's true. Why? Because a lot of them do not stick to their lanes. They go over on the other side, they try to weave in and out. And that has got to be stopped for everybody's sake, for their sake, for the sake of their families, and for the sake of motorists.
Thank you so much, Pamela. Can we get a response first? Then we'll go to the next gentleman with the blue jumper.
Yeah, thank you very much to the lady who raised the point about the concern about the tight left turn that's being proposed here. Yes, we know how tight that is, and more work, he laughs sardonically in the front row. A lot more work needs to go into this proposal before it can be taken forward. One important piece of technical work that still needs to be done is an analysis of the swept path. And that is a technical piece of desktop work that would be done if we do take this to the next stage. And that we'll analyze that left turn to give us an output that will tell us, okay, these are the changes that you need to make there to make that left turn safe for all vehicles to make, including the largest vehicles, so, emergency vehicles. So, yep, take that one on the chin, of course. That is a contentious point, raised by many, many other people, and raised by several others to me personally as well, but thank you for raising that. I just wanted to come in on the point about motorcyclists' behaviour. It is a sad fact that they are disproportionately impacted at this location for one reason or another. What we don't want to do is get into the business of victim blaming. And, they are having to negotiate a very, very busy and treacherous part of the road network They have chosen to use a motorcycle. That's their right. We have engaged with the Motorcycle Action Group, and they are, by and large, pleased with what we have proposed. They actually would like us to go a bit further. But, we have to try and strike a balance between all road users. So I think we just need to be careful about victim blaming here.
Chair, Chair, no, Andrew. Could you also acknowledge the fact that it was raised, which is that motorcyclists do behave in a manner that is not perhaps within keeping of the highway code? Please at least acknowledge that, because we're not looking to get victims here, but we are looking to have a balanced discussion.
Sure, Chair, but I'm not going to agree with what you just said. I'm not going to agree with what you just said. So I think human nature dictates that all road users behave outside of the highway code at various times. I don't think we should be labeling one particular group of users over another.
So what we're saying here is that the lady has said that the disproportionality means that the people who misbehave or who don't follow the rules are the ones who are being hurt. Now, what I'm asking is, can you, when you're addressing, at least acknowledge that they are putting themselves in danger? Yes, of course. We're all potential victims of road accidents, but can you at least acknowledge that sometimes some of these things are because of poor driving?
No, I'm not going to acknowledge that. I don't think it's fair to label motorcyclists in that way.
Right, we agree to disagree. Next question, please.
Hello? Right, you can hear me, good. Thank you very much indeed, Mr. Chairman. I think the first questioner, made the most valid point, and that is about the data. Now, I went and attended the consultation at Hogarth House. Now, before I arrived there, I read somewhere that, in fact, it was in the top 10 of schemes because it was in the top 10 areas where most accidents were happening. When I arrived there, I was told something quite different, in fact, that data wasn't correct and that data was being adjusted. And, of course, now we have other data which says, revealed this evening, that it's mostly motorcyclists. So it seems to me that fundamentally, TfL have a huge amount of work to do on getting a lot more data. Because this is an issue for not just the main drag, it's an issue for all the residents who live around there. It's interesting, by the way, that TfL said that helping traffic flow on the M4A4 would be a byproduct of what they do. Now, being a resident in Chiswick, who often accesses that roundabout to come in and out of Chiswick, I think that the traffic flow on the A4, M4 is the fundamental issue here. And I'm very concerned if this goes ahead, and the timetable at the moment is for it to go ahead in the autumn, winter of next year, when traffic flows are at their highest, that traffic going in and out of London will grind to a halt when I'm sure 1 or 2 lanes will be closed when work is done. Now, I've spoken to a few people who work and live and run businesses in central London. They are appalled at the idea that that road, which is already stationary in traffic, could become even worse. So you could be disrupting the whole of West London traffic. So there's a lot to think about before you progress.
And don't forget Hammersmith Bridge as well. Andrew.
I agree with everything the gentleman said. No, quite honestly, I do. I think there's a lot more work to be done. I think I said that quite honestly at the outset. So no truck from me. I agree with you. And I just wanted to, I think correct the intimation that Hammersmith Bridge is Transport for London's responsibility. That's owned and managed by the London Borough of Hammersmith and Fulham. Transport for London are working with them and the DFT to reopen that to traffic as soon as possible.
And the lady in pink in the middle there.
Thank you very much indeed. Yeah, basically it's just reiterating, but I would like to speak to that gentleman there. Now, my father was a motorcyclist for over 70 years, and he would be the first one to agree with what the points that have been made here that you oppose. So stop putting political correctness first and start putting Chiswick residents' lives first, because I use that roundabout, and I know that my life will be at risk if somebody wants to go to Church Road on what you're proposing, and so will the other residents here, and it's not acceptable. You are putting Chiswick lives in jeopardy. Now, okay, you might not care about that, but actually we live here and we don't want to be in the situation where somebody's turning left there, they have to stop, and somebody else ploughs into the back of us and has a multiple pile-up because of what you've done. So at this meeting now, I would like that to be taken into consideration and mentioned in the notes, and the responsibility of who's here and what they've said, because it needs to be noted and it needs to be taken a lot more seriously than it is. Thank you.
Thank you. We won't respond. The gentleman in the front row, and Tim and Andrew, do you mind responding shortly on that point, and then the second point as well? The gentleman in the front row first. No, the gentleman in the front row first, Tim, then you.
Andrew, my name is Michael Campbell. Would you agree that the data that you've presented to date doesn't in any way show anyone here at all that there is justification for spending £5 million here? And on the contrary, what you should be doing is trying to signpost the road better from all sorts of angles that probably would only cost you less than £50,000, but you're proposing to spend £5 million. At this point in time, Hogarth Roundabout is a challenge because of the LTN, as the lady said earlier. And at this point in time, you're running a programme here supposedly on security, which you can't support with spurious data. And at this point in time, we need a longer-term solution for Hogarth Roundabout, which also has the added problem of, as you highlighted earlier, of a bridge that's actually in great danger at some point in time of falling over. And my concern really is to say, we're going to miss an opportunity here because at some point in time in the next 10 years, we need to tunnel under the Hogarth Roundabout to actually free up traffic. And if we allow one Burlington lane to go ahead, then that will preclude us tunnelling under the Hogarth Roundabout to have a longer-term solution in line with what Hammersmith is doing 10 years from now in tunnelling down to take out the flyover at Hammersmith. So at this point in time, this is spending £5 million when £50,000 in new signs and better directional situation would actually be much better.
Thank you, Michael. We hear your point. Okay, Andrew and Timothy, and then the gentleman with the glasses at the end, and then I'll come to the councillors. I've got two more people in the audience, and I'll come to the councillors.
Firstly, to the lady who criticised the scheme, as I said before, I'm not here to defend the scheme, and the point that you've raised is more than valid, and it's been raised by other people, and as I've already conceded, we've got a lot of work to do on this imperfect concept if we decide to take it to the next stage. The issue itself that people are honing in on of the rather abrupt reduction in speed that you would need perhaps to do to make that left turn, that is being looked at behind the scenes in more detail, I can assure you. At the very least, we would have to widen the mouth of that junction significantly and marry that to other design changes as well to make that a safe and viable turn. One thing that I can say on the issue of safety and on that turn in particular is that all of our schemes are subject to an independent road safety audit process. That's a 3-stage process, so the first stage has already been done, and that's on the proposal. It would have to satisfy those independent auditors a second time, and then a third time for it to be a reality. So, that their methodology, you can look that up. It's not done by TfL officers. So if this scheme does become a reality, you can be assured that it will have gone under the rule of those independent auditors from a safety point of view. The point that the gentleman in the front row made, I'm a pragmatist. You raised the issue of signage being far cheaper and perhaps just as efficacious. Yes, I agree. There is a lot of stuff that we could already be doing to look at increasing the visibility of the left turn lane onto Burlington and getting people into the right lane earlier in the process. We are thinking about that. That's being looked at. As a minimum, we would look to do that as the result of whatever we're aspiring to do here, I think lines and signs are the cheapest and sometimes most efficient way of getting to the same output that we're aiming at the start of a process like this. So yeah, nothing is off the table at this point. I just want to stress that again. I want to emphasize that again, that this is a concept. We're not going straight to construction here. I think the issue of construction was raised by the gentleman over there. All of these things need to be thought about in the round very, very carefully. And that's why Timothy and I are here, to listen more to the feedback that you're giving us, and just to reassure people of the area that, you know, our ears are open, and this is going straight to the people who are designing these things.
Okay, we're grateful that you're here, and I've noticed what you said earlier, which is that you believe you have a track record of responding to consultations. So let's see if your word is true when that time comes. The gentleman with the glasses on his head first, and then the lady in the front row, and then I will go to a couple of the councillors who may have some questions for them as well.
I don't know if traffic light phasing is part of this, has been considered as part of this scheme, but I frequently return to Chiswick via the 316, and since the LTNs have closed off Hartington Road and Staveley Road, I have to go up to the Hogarth roundabout to turn left along the A4 and then turn right at the lights. The phasing of the lights seems to favour east-west traffic to the detriment of the traffic on the 316, which backs up at busy times past the Staveley Road junction. Has this been taken into consideration? Should more time be given to the lights for the traffic on the 316? I'd just be interested to know whether this is part of your plan, or whether this comes down to a traffic department in Hounslow. I'm not sure.
So I can take this one. So with the traffic light phasing, the A316 is really important, not least because it's also transport for London Road Network, but because it carries the bus services, and our colleagues in Network Performance who monitor and alter the traffic signals and look at the timings are very conscious of those bus journey times and want to safeguard them. And actually, one of the reasons why we're unusually looking at increasing capacity at the roundabout with the extra lane is to improve the circulation of the roundabout. And what that should mean is we actually can give more time to the A316 to support that. So we are very conscious of that. And as part of the post-monitoring, if the scheme goes ahead, you know, our colleagues will be looking at the signal timings and they will be adjusting them. And just to add as well, the signals are operated dynamically, so they respond to congestion. They can't do it very well at the moment because it's such a congested roundabout, but the hope is that once the roundabout starts to circulate better, those traffic lights can be more responsive and help to improve that throughput.
Thank you, Tim. The lady in the front row. And if you have any further questions, can we just save them for the open forum in a second? But lady in the front row.
It was said that you're going to make 4 lanes because people are getting blocked up and there's lorries on there. But then you said the accidents were caused by people lane swapping. Surely getting another lane just gives more lanes to swap into and cause more accidents. I mean, the most dangerous ones at roundabouts are like at Victoria and other ones which are just bigger with bigger lanes. And I can only think having a 4th lane is just going to cause even more accidents.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, one might think, you know, introducing even more competition for lanes, right? But the logic behind the 4th lane is that it's a dedicated left turn lane, and it will begin much farther back before Mawson Lane even, so that traffic that wants to turn left is already in its correct lane when it gets to the roundabout. What's happening right now is with the first lane being ahead and left, you've got people jostling when they realize too late, oh crumbs, I need to be in the left lane, and then they're doing that maneuver, sometimes cutting across 1 or even 2 lanes on the roundabout itself. So the logic behind introducing the 4th lane is that traffic would much sooner in the process get where it needs to be, then there's less jostling, less competition, it increases the predictability of the operation of the roundabout, and that should, in theory, benefit people, vulnerable road users, we call them, people who aren't protected by the shell of a vehicle, essentially.
Thank you so much for that, Andrew. Can I ask Councillor Peter Thompson to ask his question?
Yeah, I won't repeat the points that have been made. Just kind of thank you for your presentation. I'm very conscious that you're not the decision makers. That's somebody else's job. But I think you very clearly explained the whys and wherefores of what's proposed. There's some aspects I don't particularly have a strong view on. Like I can't ever remember going around that roundabout at 40 miles an hour. So if you reduce it to 30, who cares? I don't know why a cyclist, and I do cycle, would even think about going anywhere near that roundabout. So you might want to save a bit of paint in terms of that aspect of it. Just pick up 2 points. You mentioned about the dedicated lane. Again, I'm on there virtually every day. I was there at 5 o'clock-ish today. So I know it well. I know what you mean about the shifting between trying to get into the right lane. One of the problems with dedicated lanes is they don't particularly work sometimes. So I drive up to get home past on there, but also I go up Warwick Road, so where the big Tesco is, and there's a dedicated lane. Now, many of us queue up halfway down that road, and then all the other so-and-sos just come and push in. And that's a danger. It happens also as you try to get onto the elevated, the M4, down the A4. Again, there's now 2 lanes there, but folks push in. So that's just one thought. But the other one is, when it was this area committee, as it was many years ago, when we introduced the controlled parking in various parts of Chiswick, the reason why we left Morsden Lane out was strong representation from the brewery, because their guys and their workers, sorry, I have to say these days, their workers work very odd shifts, often have to get here before public transport even starts. So they were very keen to have somewhere where they could park, and it is free, yeah, they could park there free of charge. And I'm just very concerned, the brewery industry is having a hard enough time as it is, in the consultation process, that their voice, if it hasn't, I'm sure it has been, if it hasn't been, I think their voice needs to be heard, because it would have an impact on their workers. Parking in that area is a challenge. We don't want to create whatever we need, 40, 50 business permits, which would force residents out. Because of the flooding on the river, it's limited anyway. So just a few thoughts there about moving forward. But I do accept it's messy. But then I suppose many roundabouts are, and in a sense, because it's sort of slow and stoppy and starty, that is sometimes, maybe it makes it slightly safer in a weird sort of way. I don't know what you think about that one, but don't comment on that. But I think all my points are really for you to take away and think about. But please do make sure the brewery, if they haven't caught on to what's going on, are aware, particularly from their workers' perspective.
Yeah, I can very, very briefly answer the point about the brewery. Yeah, we have been speaking to the brewery at every stage of this, and we've had a few site visits with them. They have raised that. Borough officers have raised that, and we're talking about that internally about a way around it, because one of the complementary bits of this scheme is the pedestrianisation of that southern bit of Mawson Lane and increasing the greenery there. So yeah, we need to think about that carefully. Thank you.
Councillor Todd.
Yeah, thank you. Can we come on to the data issue? You haven't mentioned that you had to apologise for the inaccuracy of your initial. The Sunday Telegraph did a very comprehensive article on the data, and they found even more mistakes. Did you ever respond to the Sunday Telegraph?
I believe that our press office were contacted by the Telegraph. I'm not sure if they got a response, though, for that article.
Have you challenged their suggestion that your data was even more misleading than you apologised for?
I don't read the Telegraph, so I don't know what you're referring to specifically. But I did make reference to the fact that we'd corrected the collision data in the consultation earlier.
Okay. You've seen the response from the head of traffic in Hounslow on your scheme, which is, in my view, a number of great reservations. Can I be specific very briefly, Chair? He says in road safety, the impact of this proposal on road safety needs further investigation. It is not clear that this is a direct response to the collision data. Not clear that it's a direct response to the collision data, and may in itself lead to other road safety concerns. It is essential that the impact on the left turn lane is fully investigated and subjected to road safety audit to ensure there's no unintended consequences. Would you like to comment on that?
Yeah, I think that they're valid concerns raised by the borough. What I would say to the audience is that we work very, very closely with those officers that drafted that response, so that's not a surprise to us, those comments. And we work hand in glove with them at every stage of these schemes. I think that the tenor of those comments is actually pretty normal for a consultation response from a borough. We wouldn't expect anyone to just take, without a pinch of salt, what we've proposed and say, yeah, that's great, crack on. There's always things that we can work on, and we will work on with them.
Okay. Chair, can I have two more quick ones? Yeah.
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah, I'm reading from, yeah. They go on to say, given the access requirements for the local community and businesses, it would therefore appear necessary for the access from Hogarth Roundabout to Church Street to remain open. It has not been made clear what options were reviewed when drawing up the current proposals. By way of example, the access to Church Street is not required to be closed to facilitate the left turn lane from the A4. Would you like to comment on that?
Just to say that that's an opinion of the borough, and to be fair, you know, as I mentioned earlier, the assumption around the closure is to do with the structural assessment to the flyover. So once we have that back, we can more better judge that. But you know, with the information we have at the moment, the view is that we need to close the access point. But as I say, that is based on the forthcoming assessment on the structure itself.
Okay, Chair, my last question. Yep. The attendance at your various meetings from the locals highlights the immense concern, the viability of the church operation, Chiswick Mall. Some of these people have actually spent money commissioning traffic experts to try and rebut. The most significant thing I've seen is the review of the proposal by an independent, professionally qualified traffic engineer has concluded that the current scheme does not comply with the highway design standards set by DMRB CD 116, would intensify the use of an existing vehicle access with substandard geometry and visibility, would restrict access to the existing land served by Church Street, and finally increase the likelihood of collisions on the A316 southbound exit from the Hogarth roundabout. On reflection, would you agree with me that you came to us for a consultation with a project that wasn't viable and hadn't been researched enough?
I think that's a valid point, and I think that that kind of feedback is certainly very helpful in the evolution of a scheme like this. So, yep, as I said, I'm not here to defend the scheme or be evangelical about it, and I've used the word imperfect on a couple of occasions, and I would just reiterate that again. Of course, yeah, there's no such thing as a perfect scheme. So any expert opinions like that, we certainly will take into consideration, of course.
Thank you very much. Gabriella, be very brief. We have noticed we're running way over the top.
Yeah, so quick question. I didn't hear in your answer, Timothy, and thank you very much for the time that you've given us. I know that we've met several times on this project, and I've made my concerns clear. But just listening to your answer to the gentleman's question about flow from the A316 to the A4, you mentioned that it would increase flow to the A316, but how do these proposals actually improve flow from Chiswick Bridge and the A316 into Chiswick and the A4, please?
It's based around, by providing capacity on the roundabout, the roundabout can circulate better, which means we can adjust the signal timing to allow more time for the A316 to enter the roundabout. That's the working assumption.
Thank you. And just as a point of clarification, I believe the Hammersmith fly-under has been voted in by Hammersmith Council, but the funding is to come from TfL. So do you know if TfL has any funding to make that project happen?
I think that the fly under, and that is just to translate that, the concept of boring a tunnel underneath Hammersmith Town Centre and burying the traffic per se. that is something that Hammersmith as a council has adopted in its latest plan. It is not something that we're actively working on, and it's not something that we're thinking about funding at the moment. We certainly don't have the spare money in our business plan to fund a project of that nature.
And sorry, my last question. Due to the flooding of Chiswick Mall, what consideration has there been put for a suitable access around Mawson Lane to the A4 for when the Chiswick Mall is impassable, by foot or bike?
Just to say that we're aware of the flooding, the surface water flooding, and we're aware of the tidal effect on Chiswick Mall, and this is something that we'll develop in more detail at the detailed design stage, and it's something that came up in the safety audit as well, the interaction between the A4 and Mawson Lane.
Thank you so much. Now, it's good. The good news is we've got all that on record, but I'm really conscious of time. So, Councillor Bidoff, could you be brief? And if anybody else has questions in there, we're going to move it to the open forum, by all means. So go ahead.
Thank you very much, and thank you for the information. 2 points have been made by several people today, and you as well, and they're in conflict, but both of them have to be taken on board. One is that it's a local scheme, and one is that it's a strategic route. And it doesn't achieve either of those. I think we've heard plenty of comments today about how neither of those points is satisfied by this scheme. So it does need to be looked at very seriously. On a smaller point, I don't know what demand there has been. Nobody has asked me, as a councillor whose ward ends at the roundabout, for somewhere to sit and somewhere to park a bike at a roundabout. I don't know to what extent a roundabout is a destination. It'd be quite good to have that evidence. And I will send you the link to the Telegraph article. It's disappointing your press office hasn't kept you briefed, because it is about your scheme. It's a significant article. I'll send that to you.
Thanks. I look forward to reading that article. You got a good laugh on the point about the benches, but it's actually, a serious point for us. We design our schemes based on the principles of healthy streets. And what the feedback that we've been getting over the last decade or so from older people is that one of the social barriers they face when going out and about on foot or visiting relatives or friends is that they often can be put off by the fact that there's no places to sit, there's no places of shade. So it is important to us that we cater to those people by thinking about, okay, where could they sit? Where could we plant trees to give them places to sit in shade? As we know, the summers are getting hotter, we're suffering heat waves that are more intense year on year. So, it's not a funny point for us, Joe, it's actually a serious point.
It is a serious point. There's a bench just at the bottom of Devonshire Road, actually in, I've forgotten the name of the road, sorry? Yeah, in Homefields, at the bottom of both wards. I've seen somebody sitting on it once, and it was actually the day that I went to a meeting at the pub, and it was somebody who was having a drink. But there is the pub there. It's open all day, every day. They can very welcome to go and sit in the pub garden, in the pub itself. I'm sure they'd be very welcomed by the publican. So I really struggle with why a roundabout is the place to put seating. There's pleasanter places very nearby, and why a roundabout is a destination for a cyclist.
Okay. Respond to that in a second. Councillor McGregor, last word.
Very quickly, Mr. Chairman. I believe in facts and figures, like many of you here, and I've actually tested the access road onto Church Street when it's closed. And I have a reasonably decent car. It's not a big car, it's a compact, it's a mini SUV. And in order to turn left into that route suggested by the planners from TfL, one has to take the outside lane underneath the flyover, turn left to do your 360 degree, to do your 180-degree turn. I have a video of my attempts. I took 4 attempts before I could get round it without having to reverse during the corner maneuver, and that is hugely dangerous. So the people who looked at this are not worthy of the name transport planners. The second point I want to raise is that in the 1990s, Dr. Brian Mawhinney was the transport minister, and he established a transport strategy Unfortunately, in 1997, the Labour Secretary of State, John Prescott, scrapped the entire set of schemes for the transport strategy of the United Kingdom, including the flyover that was going to be built at Hogarth Roundabout. This roundabout is a victim to promises not maintained, and is a victim for poor transport policy. And the other problem is this: we've got a piece of junk, the flyover, which is a welcoming sign for people coming for the first time in London along the A4. It's a disgrace. It's a humiliation.
Thank you. Please respond, especially Councillor Biddulph's one, but then also to finish off with the remarks of Councillor McGregor.
Sure. So just in relation to the, I mean, it's you know, in terms of Chiswick, in terms of Hogarth Roundabout being a destination for cyclists, you know, not necessarily the case, but the data that we have does show that it is a key interchange and intersect point for cyclists because of its location and where it is. So that's why we're looking at some measures to support cycling. Just in terms of the reason why the benches are proposed where they are is linked to the fact that we're having to retain the subway in our proposals. And one of the things that, as Andrew mentioned, was about knowing that you have somewhere to sit and rest is quite important. So maybe if you're struggling to use the steps, you know, actually having that knowledge that if you need to rest and you can sit somewhere near the steps is really important, and it's something that we picked up through our feedback. And so that's really the reason. It's not necessarily somewhere we want to sit to enjoy the roundabout, but it is quite important if you wouldn't otherwise be on foot and use the subway if you didn't know there was somewhere you could sit.
I was going to say more of the same, really. I think it was, you know, a serious point that needed addressing.
Thank you very much. Now, Councillor Biddulph, should we ask for that data, perhaps?
Yes, I think it would be very useful to see the data about the need, the degree to which that place is a strategic point for cyclists to park. Thanks.
Okay. Andrew, Timothy, thank you so much for coming. As I want to reiterate what Councillor Thompson says, you know, you are here to get a message, but obviously you're not the actual planners. We now move on to the open forum, and I invite all of you to stay and raise questions. It can still be about Hogarth Roundabout, or make a comment, don't worry about that. I've had, however, 2 questions in advance for this forum, and we're going to try and run through it as quickly as we can. The idea here is just want to let you know that we are your servants, we as councillors, and we've got senior officers here as well. We're here to serve you, and so in this discussion, any items that we believe needs attention, we will take it up as casework on your behalf, hopefully to respond to it directly. Just as a reminder, we're here to serve you. Sometimes that gets lost, I think, in some of these discussions. So, as your servants, we're opening the forum to you. And the first person who has actually sent a question in advance was Anton Henriksen, who wanted to ask a question. Is Anton here? Okay, as Anton's not here, I'll ask one of our officers to read the question out.
Okay, so Anton wanted to raise 2 important questions regarding the Waterworks Festival held annually in Gunnersbury Park, which had a significant impact on the surrounding community. So number 1, noise levels. Why does the council permit noise levels of up to 90 decibels for this event when the Code of Practice on Environmental Noise Control at concerts guidelines recommend a maximum of 65 decibels in residential areas? The excessive noise has been a major disturbance for local residents, and it would be helpful to understand the rationale behind allowing such high levels, particularly in a densely populated area. And then he talks about Waterworks and DNB All-Stars events that also have gone above the noise levels. So that was one aspect. The second part is antisocial behaviour. What plan does the council have for addressing the recurring issues of antisocial behaviour during the festival, such as littering, public urination, drug sales, which continue to plague the area, These problems not only disrupt the local community but also contribute to a decline in the quality of life for residents during the events.
Yeah, thank you very much. Now, we've actually got, in this particular case, we've actually had a response from the officer on this. One second. On this, and this is typically what happens with the council, is once a question comes in, we and officers get together and hopefully try and resolve it, and this is the response. And I'll also ask Councillor Bidoff to add further comment, as you have dealt with quite a few of these issues this summer.
I can read it. So the response from the officer on the noise level question was, the Gunnersbury CIC has obtained a premises licence which includes a number of conditions, including those specifically surrounding noise and noise levels during events. The threshold for noise is lower than 90 decibels average over a set period of time. During the summer events, technical officers from the council have been undertaking noise monitoring, and each event organiser employs their own acoustic specialists to ensure noise levels do not exceed permitted levels. Noise from all events were within permitted levels. We are still compiling complaint numbers from the most recent event weekend in September, so we are not able to share complaint numbers, but we'll be happy to circulate this information once it becomes available. And there's another one on antisocial behaviour.
No, let's for now get to keep the noise issue.
Thank you. Just to reassure everybody, we've produced a report after each series of festivals since the first one in 2018. There was an interregnum interruption during COVID, but we have responded each time with lists of actions that need, of events, of activities that need actions. We've attended the licensing application hearings that set the decibel levels. Some changes have been made as a result. I don't know if some of you came to an area forum last summer when a resident presented us with an acoustics report. It was a resident who had organised music festivals himself and knew a little bit about acoustics, and it's the consequence of his report to us, offered voluntarily, that the Gunnersbury Park CIC, the community interest company that runs the park, then took on an acoustics consultant of its own. So that's resident action in action, if you like. Residents have made things happen. Each year they've made changes to the layout in the park, and every time they make a change, new people are affected. So this year, some parts of our wards that weren't affected last year were affected this year. And it seems that every time there's a change, there's a new problem. Getting through that is going to be the issue. What I can just tell you, if you do have concerns about it this year, I don't know whose phone is on, but it would be great if it could put up. Thank you. Okay, thank you. There are the park is holding 2 debrief sessions for residents to attend on Saturday the 5th at 10 o'clock and 11 o'clock. Saturday the 5th, in the large mansion at Gunnersbury Park. You do have to book. If anybody wants to go, ask me and I'll send you the link to book. It's not that numbers are limited, it's they need to know numbers for fire safety reasons.
Thank you. Is there any questions or comments from the audience about noise at Gunnersbury Park?
They shouldn't make them now. I've had it.
Karen's got her hand up. Where are our... Just quickly, briefly, please.
Sorry, one of the days, I think it was a Friday, I believe, rather than the Saturday, I was desperate, actually, and I kept ringing, I kept trying the wardens, I kept trying making complaints. I was told on the phone that there was no point in them going down to check the levels, that they would be okay. I actually felt, I was at the end of my tether, and it was appalling. I'm 2 miles from Gunnersbury. If you look on the Nextdoor website, there were people in Shepherd's Bush 3-4 miles away. So it is a huge problem, and I don't mind what time of day it is. I do not want that bass in my head for hour after hour after hour. So I hope that we can do something again for next year.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Now, we will bring back the stakeholders of that park, hopefully in due course. ideally before the next events are fully planned out. Just a quick one, whilst we got Timothy and Andrew here, I've got a question from a lady who was here a while ago. Do we, as a committee, have any way of asking TfL to reconsider its decisions to shorten the N27 bus route so that it stops at Hammersmith, brackets, and waits in Glenthorne Road, rather than carrying on onto Chiswick, approximately 6 further stops? Now, I know this is not perhaps your area, but is that something that you can comment on?
Yeah, I think this is referring to the fact that we shortened the route about 5 years ago. So I do know the history of this, actually. So Chiswick Business Park primed that bus route, and that's essentially they put some money in up front to sort of prove the concept that is there enough demand for this bus route, and if there is, TfL will keep operating it. Unfortunately, the demand was not there, so then we consulted on shortening it. That was implemented about 4 or 5 years ago. What I can say about bus routes is I know we're not currently looking at that route, the 27, but we are always constantly monitoring demand, and we can use real-time data, tap-in data to see where people are starting and ending their journeys, and we use that data to constantly evolve the bus route. And we are all the time looking to match capacity on bus routes to the actual demand. So if there is a fluctuation in the demand, we will most certainly leap on that.
Thank you, and I'm glad you got 2 hats on. That's quite impressive. The lady's actually here still.
I remember the consultation. I don't actually remember what the results were in terms of detail, other than the comment that it wasn't a referendum, which I thought was an interesting one. From Transport for London, one got the impression that, we've consulted TIC, but we don't really care very much about what the result is. It is the only route that we can get to from Chiswick to High Street, Kensington, without changing. It's also, most importantly, the only north-south route which gets us to Paddington Station and St Mary's Hospital, and Harley Street, and all the way along there. Anybody who's actually tried to come back and had to change at Hammersmith bus station, particularly on Saturday afternoons, frustrated with 3 number 27s that come in before we can actually transfer onto another bus that's going to Chiswick. So it would be good if it could be looked at. I'd also quite like to know how the data's assembled in terms of how many people are frustrated by not being able to catch that bus continuing to Chiswick.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, again, very valid points, and I can assure you we will be looking at that, and I will take a note to... I will personally email the bus planning team and ask them what the latest is with the 27, if there's any plans afoot to, evolve that route. To give a tiny bit of context about some of the decisions we come to on the bus network, which may seem a little bit mysterious, we have, in recent years, have to behave more like a private enterprise, and that is to say, operationally, from an expenditure point of view, we have to wash our own face. So that's why you might see across London, especially in inner London and central London, TfL looking to cut back on bus routes or consolidate bus routes or make bus corridors, that's a jargonistic term, more efficient. And that is to say, reduce the gap between the demand on a route and the capacity that we're providing. And the reason for that is because we have to save money, plain and simple. And so there will have been a financial prerogative behind that initial reduction on the 27. But if the demand has recovered, then it's certainly in our interest. We want to generate as much revenue as we can, and it's one of our main strategic aims to increase ridership on the bus network, then we will certainly look at that.
Thank you. The gentleman in the middle, is it to do with the bus route? Is it to do with the bus? Yes.
By the way, I'm disabled. I'm blind in one eye and got angina and all that. The only way to get to Kensington, the only way to get to St Mary's Hospital, the only way to go to a eye hospital, the only way to go to Euston Station, for me, is was bus 27. However, now I have, because I cannot, or with difficulty, I can negotiate the steps in Turner Green or in Chiswick Park, I'm totally, utterly, I have to take at least an hour more time to go to Hammersmith with one bus, and then change on Hammersmith to 27 to continue my journey, and probably be late because of it to my appointment. And doctor's appointments have to be kept, as you probably know. That's one point. So the only way for people from Chiswick, well, nearly to Hammersmith as well, the only way to get to that area is a bus. Nothing else exists in this town apart from this bus 27 for all the reasons I just mentioned. Even if I wasn't disabled, it is difficult.
So I think
That's one point. The other point is we are still waiting for promised stop of Piccadilly line all day long on Turner Green Station. We campaigned, I'm in Chiswick since 1983, on the same place. We campaigned, we were promised so many times, and they never fulfilled the obligations that I have given. One of the reasons they say it's a signaling. What about signaling? They're stopping there after 10:30 anyway. It's just stupid.
Sir,
yes.
I'm really sorry. I think you've made very important points there, but we have to move on quite quickly.
Okay, that's me finished, apart from maybe a lift on Turner Green as well. Which is planned. Plenty of space.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to go over the ground we just said about the 27, other than to say I hear you, and I've already emailed a note to myself to call the bus planners in the morning and talk to them about that. On the reinstatement of Piccadilly line services to Turnham Green, that is obviously a very historical request, and we've had a similar request from the Hammersmith and Fulham Council about Ravenscourt Park. They want district line services to stop there all the time as well, and there is a gap there in between what's possible in terms of the signalling, which sounds simplistic, but I appreciate it sounds simplistic, but I once delved into the detail of this when I raised that request on behalf of another council. It is more complicated than one might think to program in regular services on the same track for a different line without negatively impacting thousands and thousands of other onward customers that can otherwise be served by another line. But no, I hear the frustration. It's not something I can personally really affect, unfortunately. I know, and I get how frustrating that is.
Right, okay, thank you. Now, I completely hear your point and your frustration, and I'm glad that you've actually answered this question for us. I'm really thankful, and we're going to hopefully continue that dialogue. But I see all the hands up, don't worry. It's your forum, it's your open forum, don't worry. Everybody will get a chance to speak, go ahead.
Is that on? Yeah. Thank you. My name is Stephanie Ashton. I wanted to move away from transport to talk about street violence. Now, there's been quite an increase in that recently, particularly a lot of young children, so years 6 and 7, since the start of term, children being mugged. And obviously, that's not something we particularly want to see in the area, and it seems to be escalating. And I'd just be really keen to understand what you might be able to do in terms of raising this with the local police and what action might be taken in relation to this really quite worrying.
Okay. Luckily, again, we've got one of our police officers in the room tonight. Thank you, sir.
Evening, everyone. I'm Sergeant O'Donnell from Chiswick Safe Neighbourhoods. So I cover all the Chiswick wards. So we are aware there's been an uplift in robberies, particularly against school children. What we're seeing is it seems to be youths coming in from other areas such as Hammersmith, Shepherd's Bush, hanging around, watching for school kids on their phones with AirPods, following them off the road and then surrounding them, robbing them. So we are aware. There's a policing plan in place. I can't go into too much detail around that. It's quite sensitive things, but it involves plainclothes patrols, high visibility patrols. We've got the schools officers working with the schools on pupil safety, around carrying mobile phones on show, around going into shops. If they're being followed to go into shops, call 999. I can say myself and some of my neighbourhood officers were out on Friday on plainclothes patrols, responded to an attempted robbery, and we managed to detain 2 of the males involved, who we've now linked to the whole gang, recovered a knife off one of them, so they were both arrested for a series of robberies. So we are taking action, and like I said, there is a wider policing plan in place to tackle the robberies. Yep.
Can I just ask what advice you'd give us? Because I've seen these kids. I've seen, you know, you're in the park and suddenly there's 2 or 3 kids on bikes with masks or balaclavas in the middle of the summer. Clearly they're not up to anything good. But what is the advice you give us? Because that doesn't seem like a 999 call, but what should we be doing if we see people kind of acting suspiciously?
So what I say is that is a 999 call. So if you see, on Friday, it was quite warm, and the officers, we were out in pairs. Straight away, they were hoods up, masks on. One had like a COVID mask, the other had a balaclava, stood out like a sore thumb. As soon as they saw them, we knew they were up to no good. And as we were following them, that's when the call came out that they'd been in an attempted robbery. They've then tried to escape on Lime bikes, and we've detained them. So if you see people out of place like that, they're hanging around, masked up. What we found was they were sitting on a bench, and they were obviously just waiting for a kid to go past on a phone. So anything like that, just 999, and we'll get units down there to detain them and get them searched. And like I say, the ones we caught, one of them had a knife on him, so and that's what we're targeting, really.
Thank you so much. Now, I don't know if Sally is still here from Chiswick W4 Youth. Is she here? Okay, she's not here at the moment. Can I take the next question? I'm going to try and limit the questions to about the next 5. Otherwise, we'll be here all day. I mean, I'm happy to be here all night, but I don't know if all of you are. Go ahead, lady, please.
Hi, my name is Christy. I am part of the senior leadership team at Belmont Primary School, which is right across the street. Plus, I am a mom of a 12-year-old boy and a 10-year-old boy. This is backing Stephanie on the crime rate that's going on. We have CCTV cameras in school. We have seen some of this crime happen on our CCTV in broad daylight. It's happened in front of one of our pupils' houses. It was very traumatic for those pupils and for the victim. Is it possible? I understand that Friday was a massive success, and I think us as a community, we're very appreciative for all of the hard work and the operation that you put into, and the manpower that you put into that. Is it possible during school time for the local primary schools and our secondary school to have some more police presence on the high street and in our neighborhoods? Having you seen and be there will help defer the crime. It will help make us as parents and staff members more comfortable. It will help make the students more comfortable. We are doing our best at school to have children put their phones away and not walk out of the school property with phones out. I have been in touch with Mothers Against Muggers, who is a mother-developed crime unit in Richmond, and I'm hoping them to get involved in Chiswick. But if we could have more presence, or if you can tell us as parents what to tell our students to be careful and be aware and be safe, and just maybe help us all be a little bit more secure and comfortable.
Thank you very much.
Really appreciate it.
No, thank you so much. If you can be very brief, please, and perhaps even write maybe a response as well, because we're not going to get through every single question. And I appreciate we have loads of people who want to speak. I do see you.
like I said, we will be doing more patrols. You won't always see those patrols because the high visibility patrols, though they're helpful to deter then and there, we're not. They'll see those officers in high vis and they'll just move on and go somewhere else. Whereas the plainclothes officers will be able to follow them and get hold of them and get them searched. So it will be a mix of both. The schools officers will be doing patrols, the PCSOs will be doing patrols, and the ward officers will be doing patrols. But like I say, you won't always see us there, but there will be an increase. And we've also got the robbery teams who will be going around in the unmarked cars doing patrols as well. There's going to be quite a lot of activity around Chiswick. And the ones that have been caught now, I think will probably lower it a little bit, the amount of robberies, because now they know that we're out in the area in plain clothes. Word's going to spread amongst themselves, and they'll hopefully deter it to some extent.
Thank you. Next person, yeah, please. Can the microphone people just stand next to the people who put their hands up so it's quicker? Go ahead, please.
Hi, good evening. This is a pillar to post question. One I'm sure everyone's familiar with in this room. I live on Thames Road. My issue relates to the inability to get any kind of Uber or Bolt service to come along the road. We all know there are traffic regulations designed to ensure Thames Road is not used as a cut-through. We also know that other than the black cabs, we know that Uber and Bolt won't come down this road during the regulated hours. Uber insists the problem comes from the council's end. The council, I know from past correspondence, insists the issue comes from the platform end, as in Uber or Bolt. This is not a satisfactory position for a resident to be caught between pillar and post. Someone has to take responsibility to sort it out. It feels to me the elected members of Hounslow Council need to sort it out because they are the ones accountable to residents. Uber aren't. Can you say that you will sort it out within the next 6 months?
Okay, thank you.
A definitive resolution so that cabs can come along. Mini cabs can come along the road.
Thank you, sir. Let me ask one of your elected servants, Councillor Giles.
I wish I could say that we could get this done in 6 months. When we started working on this project back in 2019, that was a concern, and I've had multiple conversations with traffic officers. We've spoken with publicans along Thames Road and Strand on the Green who have said that they are fearful for the safety of their employees getting home because everybody experiences the challenge you have. The issue is the council says that access, it says that access is available, and that is true, that access to Thames Road, so access for taxis is fine, but the individual Uber drivers do not want to take the risk because they end up getting landed with the fines at the end of the day. And it does become a Uber policy. I think also the fact that Google Maps does not direct traffic down there also means that a lot of drivers that are not local to the area aren't aware of the restrictions. Councillor Thompson and I were just saying that as we've now got a new Assistant Director of Transport and Traffic at Hounslow, it is time to revisit a lot of those challenges that we've experienced as a result of the South Chiswick livable neighbourhood, including visitor access to the area via Hartington and Stavey Road, which would, by nature, include Uber drivers and Bolt and that other kind of stuff. Unfortunately, many drivers have been scared because of the volume of fines that have been placed on them, whether that be justly or not.
Thank you, Councillor Giles. Please take that up if you can. This gentleman here, please. Thanks for waiting.
Hello. I live in Netheravon Road, and the electric charging points have been out of action for some time now, maybe 2, 3 months, maybe more months. I'm wondering, is this a borough-wide problem? And if so, when they're going to be fixed, particularly in my road. I actually don't have an electric vehicle, but I've been asked to ask you guys what the situation is there.
I'm not sure if Hounslow Highways are the people to answer that question.
I can answer
Okay,
with the best of our knowledge. So the electric vehicle charging points are under a CPO, so charge point operator. We're aware that there's, I think, circa 80 of them, which essentially have fallen out of maintenance and were affecting some of the streetlights. So they have been decommissioned temporarily. There is a proposal to not just replace those EV chargers, but extend the EV charger coverage across the borough significantly to support those that want electric vehicles. And that's currently in the procurement phase. So unfortunately, I can't give you a timeline for switching them on. I can just explain that they were switched off because we didn't want it interfering with the streetlights. And as I say, because those ones were out of maintenance and could cause further issues to the infrastructure.
Thank you so much. Now, I'm very, very grateful for staying. I know you live so far away, you two, and thank you so much. Now, there are a number of items which we're going to put on an issue tracker, but I think the 27 bus, if you can email me, and thank you so much for taking that up, and then I can relay it to residents here via the chairing of the area forum. The Piccadilly line will be taken up by Councillor Bidoff as an item tracker. Councillor Bidoff, can you lead on it, please? And as well as lift access. So thank you so much. But the big item, I think the most pressing one, as we can see from this room, is the crime issue. And I'm glad that we had a couple of officers who are still here taking questions and responding to answers. Now, I noticed that there's some hands at the back. It's Miss Pamela Mayorkas who would like to ask her question, which she had previously written to us.
Yeah, well, it's actually the police that I would like to address this question to. They seem to be a bit occupied at the moment, so I don't know if we can invite them to rejoin the meeting and perhaps deal with the other problems afterwards. I don't think he's listening.
Okay, thank you. So, yes, so he will be taking...
I think the problem of crime, children, mobile phones is a very, very serious one, obviously. Very important. However, there's another problem which is also serious and affects the people that live in my road. We have had countless break-ins, thefts of SUVs in Wavendon Avenue and Olwyn Avenue. I'll lay my cards on the table. First of all, I've got a driveway. I'm very, very lucky. Secondly, my car's over 20 years old. My cat and my car are about the same sort of age, 21. I don't actually have an awful lot of sympathy, but nevertheless, it is very, very disturbing that vehicles are being targeted, are being stolen, are being broken into, but were stolen. And time again, we have been trying to report this to the council and to the police, and we have had no response whatsoever. I'm told that there are patrols. I've never seen anybody patrolling Wavendon Avenue, Olwyn Avenue, Hadley Gardens.
Pamela, respectfully.
And I would very, very much like to see something happening, because if it doesn't happen, what's going to happen is that a number of residents in my street are considering employing a private vigilante service.
Thank you. Pamela,
I'm totally against that.
Pamela, thank you very much. You made your point very valid, and I see David is in this room as well. Some of the comments are not true. Councillors are aware of the theft from motor vehicles around Wavendon and around Headley Gardens and Forster Road and so on. We have actually had 2 meetings there with some residents. Unfortunately, Pamela, you were not there, but not to say that I disagree with you. I fully engage with what you're saying, and I hope that the police officers who are here are listening. And the council, to their credit, have worked tirelessly to try and fulfill some of the demands that we've asked. Clearly, it's not working. Clearly, we need more police. Clearly, we need more deterrence. And that's something I'm sure we will continue to do. Councillor Bidoff, briefly, please.
Just to add to that, Pamela, your street and others around it has been offered a street meeting by the police team. So that is to come and it is to be organised. So, yeah, you're nodding. Thanks.
And the gentleman behind Pamela.
Thank you. So David Reeford, I'm here to represent the residents of Abinger Road and our neighbours in some of the adjacent streets. Abinger Road, if you don't know it, runs north off Bath Road by Chiswick Hotel. Mostly when cars are coming in from the east, they will travel all the way down Bath Road, and if they're heading northwest, they'll go up the avenue. But when there is congestion at the roundabout by Turnham Green, sat-navs seem to point them through Bedford Park and particularly up Abinger Road. Abinger Road is long and straight and narrow, and to Pam's point, it is an inclination of drivers to go at great speed with a lack of caution, and at certain times of the day at great numbers. The residents are agreed. We have had a petition of all the members of the street, so we're at 57 of the 70 or so members, for there to be a survey or for assistance from the council to help us reduce the speed and volume of traffic at those particular times. That was submitted 6 months ago, and since then we've been given a series of lame excuses as to why that's been pushed from pillar to post. So the question is really, what support can the forum give us to apply pressure on the council to ensure that this has a greater degree of priority?
Thank you so much. Councillor McGregor.
David, you've validated the petition. Thank you so much for doing such a great job very quickly. And I commit myself to trying to get action by the council in the very near future, because if we carry on having this speed, we're going to have a serious accident. Passages and the fatalities that we talked about were missing from Hogarth roundabout. And I don't want that to happen. So you can be assured that we as the councillors, and the other thing I'll just say very quickly, if you wanted to make an impact on the council with a bunch of residents, the best thing to do is to create a petition, because then you can be absolutely assured that we as your Chiswick councillors will present that to the council, either at a borough council meeting or to the secretariat appropriate to the cause. So please feel free to do that. It's very important we have this sort of communication. David, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, David. Now we move on to agenda item 6. If you have any further pressing questions, please, our officers are in the area. They will take it up and we can follow up. Agenda item 6 is a PFI update by the Sabil Khan and Tim Hurley, the head of highways, and they're here to give us a brief presentation on their contract.
I will try and keep this brief in the interests of expediency. Okay. So, a bit of information about the PFI. We've been here a few times, so I'll just touch on some core areas. This is the number of inquiries that we receive per year. Beginning of the contract, we received 29,000 inquiries, and this year we're probably going to receive around 45,000. There is a blip on the graph there, which is between 2020 and 2022. Which we call the COVID blip, when I think reporting reduced because we all had other priorities. If you look at the inquiries, 52% of everything we receive is fly tipping, which is largely domestic waste, but there's also commercial waste within there. So behind the graph, there's lots of things we're trying to do to address the issues, but also recognize that we don't take a high number of inquiries as a bad thing. It's people simply reporting things to us which are important to them. Major maintenance, so we are in the last throes of this year's major maintenance program. As you can see here, there's 56 locations which we surveyed in the prior year and identified for investment works this year. Within Chiswick specifically, locations completed so far, so some work at Turnham Green Terrace, Chiswick High Road, Acton Lane. We still have one full resurfacing scheme to do, which is the Windmill Road, just off the Chiswick High Road, which I think we can all agree is overdue. There is additional works planned for this year in terms of footway schemes on top of the work that's already in programme there, as well as the other investment and improvement works we put into place. We've finished our 2025 surveys, so we're now putting together the 2025 programme of investment starting from around June next year. Okay.
Sorry. Just wanted to note the Windmill Road scheme was externally funded outside of the PFI, and I remembered that a certain councillor has been talking about Windmill Road to me for about 3 years now, so we needed to make sure that that was included.
Just highlights of some other schemes we've been working on, which we're very proud of this year. So Grow Park Piazza, which is a scheme funded by London Borough Hounslow, which improved, regenerated the area down by Grove Park. It included a number of measures, including some pedestrianisation improvements, junction improvements, and installation of a rain garden. There is also C9. The majority of the works this last year have diverted away from Chiswick towards Brentford as the C9 scheme progresses westward. But there is 2 further phases in progress, one continuing the westward journey and another proposed to come back towards Chiswick High Road, which is currently in consultation with TfL. Just standard works that we get onto now. So summer's gone. We're moving into winter. So we are going through our winter planning exercises to ensure that we have sufficient staff, vehicles, materials to cope with the worst winter possible. We've been quite fortunate this last few years because we've had very mild winters, but who knows what this year holds. On top of that, a key part of what we do isn't just our works, it's coordinating with other authorities. I appreciate there's been a lot of, call it investment in the underground infrastructure from Thames Gas, British Gas, Thames Water and other utility providers. So a key part of what we do is working with those authorities to ensure that we are minimising disruption as much as possible. Weeding. So we are in the 4th year of being a chemical-free borough, which to many extents we're very proud of. We think it's the right thing to do from many perspectives in terms of biodiversity, but it does present a challenge, and we appreciate everyone's patience while we work through this. Not using glyphosate means that it takes longer to get round each of the roads to remove weeds. It also allows germination to take more of an effect, and along with the warmer summers that we've had, that weed growth is even more prevalent. So what have we been doing about that? We have invested significant additional resources to ensure that we have more people on the ground to manually remove the weeds. We have also been exploring as many alternative options as possible to find something that is scalable in a borough that is highly parked, and so we'll have obstructions to getting heavy vehicles down them. That has included a variety of things from other, chemical but non-glyphosate options, electrical or electrification of weeds, heat treatments as well. We're still exploring those options. There is still nothing really that is as good as glyphosate in treating it. But like I say, we have identified a core program of 315 rows that we've been working through. We've also had additional resource to deal with reactive weeding. And we are in the last throes of that, so by mid-October we should have finished our planned program. Other things we've done, improvements for this year, so we have been sending out crews early morning to clear traffic islands. It's safer to do it that way, and it also means we target them in a more focused manner. We've done around 300 traffic islands this program, so that's over about 12 weeks. We've also been trialling new equipment, so we've looked at new electrical footway sweepers, which we could put in places like Chiswick High Road, that can be pushed along the footway to clear things like leaf fall and detritus. We've also continued our early morning cleansing of cycle lanes to keep them clear. And we're now starting to plan the leafing program. So leafing actually occurred over the summer, but we're about to get into the real big stuff when it comes to leaf fall in the borough. So that's additional resource going into the roads that have essentially a high propensity of trees. Just back on weeding, just to show people where we are. So the graph here shows the number of weeding inquiries that we've had since we stopped using glyphosate. And it has increased, which I don't think will surprise anyone here. What we do then with that data is look at that, understand if the planned program that we have is addressing those roads, and then understand what the asset impact is of those weeds. So weeds over a period of time can start to affect the asset condition of the asphalt on the channel and the footway between the curbstone and the rear of the footway, to see if we need to actually look at bringing those roads forward or those footways forward into the program. We've invested a lot in Arbin and Ort. So I think I mentioned before, we brought the horticultural program in-house, and we've increased the resource there from 8 to 12 operatives. We've also put on additional grass cutting teams. We've employed technology to ensure that we can schedule the works out quicker. And we've also finished our tree program. So we inspect 1/3 of the trees every year. This year we've done the various 6 wards. Chiswick Riverside, in particular, is one of those wards that was identified for surveys. And we've found 276 trees across the whole borough that will need to be felled in the current year and then replanted. I think around 31 of those trees were in Chiswick Riverside, and another 7 on top of that were young trees, the trees that have been planted in the last 2 years that will have to be removed and replanted again.
Sorry, Tim, can I stop you there for 1 second?
Yep.
So to allow some questions to come in.
Sure.
And then you can carry on to yes, the lady with the white T-shirt in the second row. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Isabel Marks and I live in Grove Park Road. I just wanted to ask what's happening regarding repairing the pavements. I've been a witness to several accidents. I've also been a victim of several accidents. I've recently fallen and cracked my ribs. I fell 2 years ago and broke my nose. All in the one street. I have helped pick up several neighbours who have head cuts and things. I've made complaints and nothing's happened. I've lived there 40 years and I've never seen any work done. Could we? You know,
Where do you live?
I live in Grove Park Road.
Thank you so much, madam. Yes, Tim, could you just...
I can't confirm if Grove Park Road is on the current programme. What I would advise is if you feel that a road or a footway has trips or hazards on it, you report it through our Fix My Street website. We will attend that location within a couple of days, and if it needs treating in terms of the highways inspector feels that there's a risk there, we will deal with that immediate defect. In terms of investment in replacing the whole footway, that's a bigger investment challenge. There is money to do that, but we have to prioritise the money where it's most needed. My immediate concern from what you're telling me is that there might be immediate possible hazards to pedestrian users, which I'd like to address. So I'll take it away and I'll have an inspection of that road now. Of course.
Sorry, most of the paving slabs are all broken, every single one. It's not just the odd one. I'm going to get a petition up to ask all the neighbours that I'm aware of who've had accidents to write. We have complained for years, and people have come out and said, oh, it has to be a certain depth, it has to be this. Is someone going to die first before something's happened? I mean, as I say, I had broken my nose, injured in hospital recently with cracked ribs. What can be done? There is money for it. Let's use it.
Thank you, madam. Councillor Giles.
Sabine, is there any way we can change priority of the streets that are on the pavement pledge? Because I know Burnaby Gardens was put on that list, but maybe to give priority to Grove Park Road?
Councillor Giles, it's your list, so if you want me to reassess the choice for your ward, we can...
Can we take that away as an action, please?
Still do that, yeah.
Yeah, perfect, thank you.
Just to say, that was one of the ones we suggested. Obviously, we gave you a list of 10, didn't we, or so, between the three of us, and officers chose Burnaby. But if the demand is more pressing, obviously, if you have that inspection, I'm sure Councillor Croft, who's not here tonight, would also be happy to change that. So, yeah.
Just to reiterate the point, so the investment side has been taken away. If you feel that there is a risk of someone having an injury on that road, then report it through. I'll take it away now anyway. This is just for any other road, and we will attend. And we take our obligations very seriously because we also bear the risk should anybody have a trip or fall. We're not paid to do each defect. It's our risk, and we manage that. And we take pride in doing the best job that we can.
I would also like to, my name's Michael Campbell, I would also like to highlight the south side of Dukes Avenue, which is now a complete disaster. The tarmac there is being interfered with by 2 or 3 large trees. Once the leaves start to fall, there's great danger. In the last 10 days, I travel that road all the time. I've picked 3 people up having fallen there. The trees at night, or the lights at night on that road are all stuck in the trees, so that road is dark. Most of the street lighting on that road just doesn't work. You either need to bring the street lighting down or do something else, but walking up that road at night is unsafe for women and girls, and it's unsafe to walk on, and especially when the leaves start to fall, it's going to be like an ice rink. But the trees on the south side of Duke's Avenue are a big problem now. Pardon? Duke's Avenue.
Sam.
Thank you. I'll try and just cover a small number of the issues, but the piazza, Grove Park Piazza, which looks very smart, and people seem to like, and I don't know who to turn to. I've asked lots of people, but the parking regulations there, new signs went up as the scheme was unveiled. And there used to be 30-minute parking there. We've heard about that earlier on. And there's a row of shops there, and the 30-minute free parking was a definite boom. In the middle of that, there's a pharmacy, which is used by many, many people, and many people who actually need to drive to the pharmacy and can't walk long distances and don't want to park, because this is the weird thing. The parking regulations there are now completely different from all the rest of the streets in the CPZ. They're much, much more restrictive. Now, who made that decision? We can't find who made that decision, which seems mad if you're trying to actually encourage these small rows of shops. If you let me go on just one more. Regent Street, Chiswick Riverside has a Regent Street which runs mainly along the railway line. And a few years back, pre-COVID, Network Rail came along there and cut down all the trees that are actually on Hounslow's land. If you're thinking of finding somewhere to plant more trees, then Regent Street would be a good place to look. And it would screen the railway line for the residents who do live on the other side of the road. Thank you.
Thank you, Sam. Thank you.
Very quickly, Mr. Hearn, thank you. I'll take your question about the parking at Grove Park Piazza back to parking colleagues. I don't know if it was a decision made as a result of the scheme or a byproduct of the scheme, but I can certainly take that back to our parking colleagues and get it clarified exactly what happened, what their thinking was, and actually what their plans are going forward as well.
If I can throw something in, because this traffic officer has now left, he did mention that that was going to happen. And I said, why? And he said, because commuters take advantage of it and park there the whole day. And surely the answer would therefore to get the CPZ wardens to go out and to ticket those cars.
Yeah, that sounds like just a re-establishment of actual enforcement for the 30-minute thing. So I don't know who the officer was that you spoke to before, Mr. Hearn, but I'll raise it with the head of parking. You may or may not know her, as a lady called Jacqueline Joseph, to see what her thoughts are, what her understanding is. And you've asked me already that when we have some money for trees to plant them on Regent Street, and it's still my plan. As soon as I have some spare budget for trees, new planting trees will reappear on Regent Street.
I'd like to ask when you're going to reinstate cutting the trees in Staveley Gardens. The last time I tried, which was a number of years ago, I kept on and on and on. I did the online application to say, please, can you cut this tree because it needs to be cut. It's actually too close to my home and to my neighbour's home, which is actually widely accepted, although Hounslow Council didn't accept it's too close. So structurally, at some point in time, I could have some major problems with my home. But obviously Hounslow Council will turn their back on that one. Now, as far as cutting it back, every single time, and I've lived there since 1997, every single time that I want the tree cut, and it's not every year, I can assure you, very, very less than that. Every time that it gets really out of control, Hounslow always tell me, Hounslow Council tell me, it's not our tree. I've had that one. It's planted on what is an ex-council estate, but it's not your tree, even although it's in the middle of the pavement.
Thank you very much.
That's a clever one. So
Okay.
last time I actually had to go to the MP to actually get the tree cut. So I wonder if Hounslow Council think that MPs have nothing better to do than people like me go to them to get the tree outside of their house cut. And when are they going to
Okay,
next cut?
thank you. I think I've got the points respectively. Can we try and keep it brief, please, so more people can ask questions? Sabil, you've actually answered the question like that to me in an email. Perhaps that's something that you could clarify further.
Sure. Madam, if you don't mind, after we finish here, if you can give me your actual address. Staveley Gardens is an interesting area because it's about 3 or 4 different agencies that look after 3 or 4 different pieces of land. Part of it is highway, adopted highway that Hounslow Highways look after. Part of it is LBH housing. Part of it is private housing as well. So we just need to clarify exactly where the location is of the tree. We do.
So Sabil, no. No, hang on.
We do,
hang on.
but
you do.
But there's
Sabil,
different contracts for different land types, unfortunately.
Yeah, they do talk to each other, but it's such a bureaucratic process. It just sometimes takes time, and that's not disrespect to your work, sir. But these problems do happen a lot. So thank you so much for offering to look at that case specifically. So I'm really grateful. Carol.
If you're staying on, I had a bad fall, so maybe I can report where that was to save time here, if you stay on at the end of the meeting. Are you responsible for the placement of, I don't know how to describe them, you know, poles that have parking restrictions and details on them that are parked by the parking bays? They have information. Are you responsible for the placement of these?
Parking plates on signposts are designed by our traffic officers when they do a new parking scheme or a CPZ, wherever it is. Hounslow Highways would install the sign, but as per those designs.
Right. May I just explain then quickly? It's where they're being placed. So they're being, very often, like in Heathfield Terrace, for instance, they're right in the middle of the path. So if you have a walker or a wheelchair, you can't get by. Or they're parked, for instance, in a disabled bay, instead of being at one end, they're parked in the middle, so you can't get out of your car. So it's the placement, and I don't know who can look into that. And my last question was, were you talking about the no mow May? I'm in Staveley Gardens, and I'm a little confused. I've got a photo with the grass not being cut until the end of July. Now, I don't know whether has Highways, did I understand you correctly, have you taken over all of Staveley Gardens? Because I'm on I think this is the housing side, and I don't know if it has anything
Karen,
to do with you.
can I stop you there, please? We're going far too long with questions. Sabil.
Very quickly, on your last point. So on the so again, it's difficult because there's highway verges, there's housing verges, and then there's park land. Each of us did different things for No Mow May. As Tim said earlier on, we didn't really do No Mow May on the highway this year, and that was because of some of the volume of complaints we had last year, so we kept that very low key. But I know in housing and park areas, like Councillor Biddulph said earlier on, they adopted a natural summer, so they let some certain verges grow a little bit longer. Again, we'll need to look at the map and see what grass verge it is.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. One last question from Councillor Thompson.
It's just obviously you went through your PowerPoint very quickly and it's very informative. With the weeds, I'll be honest with you, it's better than it was. I appreciate there's more being done, but I think there's still a concern, isn't there, that it's not good enough. And I'm grateful that you are looking at the possibility of going back to the spray, which I think most other London boroughs do. And I think obviously you need to look at the science behind that and all the rest of it, and that's part of the consideration. Based on that PowerPoint, though, does that mean when we get to the end of October, that's it? So if it's not done by then, it's not going to get done? Because there are stretches and patches. You know, you've done bits and say it is far better than last year, but there's elements. And my other question really is, as a ward councillor, I think all of us spend a lot of time sending photos of this bit of street and that bit of street. surely there's somebody in the council whose job it is to monitor the streets. You know, I don't think I became a councillor to be sort of a bit of a glorified council officer who has to walk the streets of Chiswick picking out the weedy bits, which we all do, I think. So can you just explain what the sort of monitoring is, and also, if it's not done by whatever it was, the 19th of October, wherever that thing said, is that the end of it for this year and they just die, hopefully?
Okay. And I think this will follow. The reality is there is probably more inquiries we get than we can do with the resource that we have. We have, and I say invested significant additional resource from my company this year. And I think they're doing the best job they can. But yes, we won't get it all done. But this is why we're then moving into the leafing program. So especially as you move to the east, where there's a lot more trees, they don't just remove leaves, they'll do everything. So the leafing should pick up the other stuff that we haven't done, and then we'll have additional teams dealing with the other inquiries that we've missed. But we have a lot more intelligence, not just reporting from residents and councillors, but also our own officers.
Very quickly, Councillor Thompson, you'll remember when the PFI was set up, we had a client team of 13 at the time. I have a client team of 3. So I can't really get round, my officers can't really get around every street in the borough. We kind of pinch and steal from waste and recycling to do a dual role. They currently do LAMS inspections, which is the Land Audit Management System from APSI, around about 5 roads a day, and there's about 8 of them. So we try to get through, with Hounslow Highways supervisors as well, we do about 200 plus inspections a month, but across the borough, of course. I'll see what we can do in terms of increasing our presence in the east of the borough.
Councillor Bidoff.
Thank you. You know that I think you need more people, and you know I think also Hounslow Highways needs more people to fulfil, certainly on the ground. My position hasn't changed on that. I'm sorry to say that I disagree with Councillor Thompson. It's been worse this year in Chiswick Gunnersbury Ward in many roads, so I'm sorry about that. And I know you've had an email from some people who are extremely upset that the weeding programme is ending before their roads have been done. And there's a whole list in the Gunnersbury Park Garden Estate as well where it's still knee-high in some places. I wrote to you some time ago, Councillor Thompson first raised this in August 2022 in his blog. What about foam stream as an option? We had one of the managing directors of the foam stream system living in the ward. He's now gone to Barnes, but his colleague lives in Ealing, and he's really willing to come and talk to you both about how to manage weeds more effectively. You made the point in your report, and he's made it. It takes 5 times as long using manual workers as it does if you use what he says should be used, mechanical, thermal, and manual as a triumvirate, as it were. He's really happy to do a demo.
Okay, I'm mindful of time. Could you get to the point?
Absolutely. I have got to the point. He would like to come and do a demo with you and show you how you can maximise the scheme. A quarter of Dublin uses it, the whole of New York
Thank you,
uses
Councillor
it,
Bidoff.
and Paris.
Thank you. I'll take Councillor Giles' comment,
Okay,
then
2 questions.
combine the 2, please.
When will we get the leafing schedule for 2024-25? It used to be published on the internet. And then could you guys please give a brief update on the discussions we've been having on Strands on the Green Wall, please?
Leafing programme should be up. Oh, sorry, my apologies, Councillor Bidoff. Yes.
We have trialled foam stream on a number of occasions. For us, I don't think it's the right solution for a borough which is heavily parked, because you need to get the cars out of the way, you need a 7.5-ton vehicle. It's a good solution. It's just not scalable in Hounslow, because if you use that, then what else aren't you doing for the cost and the disruption? You would only really spray 2 roads a day at most, and then you still have to go back and remove the weeds. I think there are other alternatives. We look at a lot of alternatives in agriculture, but I think watch this space, because the need for all authorities to do this at some point will create a solution.
Thank you, Councillor. Councillor Giles, just on leafing, I'm presuming Tim will be working on that very imminently. Late October.
Latest mid-October.
Mid-October. For Strand on the Green, we've had some real good progress over the last fortnight or so, and actually I'm in the process of writing a report to Capital Strategy Board. I was trying to get that out this evening, but I'll get that out tomorrow now. Hopefully it goes to the October strategy board, which is next week. If I can't get it there, it's definitely going to go to November. We have a project plan in place and a provisional okay for the funding.
Thank you very much. That's really great. I'm glad our work has paid off.
Absolutely. And actually, just a final note, we will be setting up a project board and I'll be inviting you to be part of that project.
Thank you very much.
Chair, I think we need to suspend standing orders to get through the rest of the agenda.
Agreed. Councillor McGregor.
Can I just thank the two officers for making a very, very good presentation and making a good fist of what we're having to do here in Chiswick. And the second point is, thank you for looking at Windmill Road in the middle of October. That road has deteriorated rapidly and ghastly. Many disabled people have complained to me when I visit disabled forums about the state of that particular road. I look forward to seeing it at the German standard.
Thank you. Gentlemen, thank you so much. But just want to go on record to say that I think that Hounslow Highways, you do help massively in making our residents proactive, but the satisfaction levels, unfortunately, are not quite at the same level, but I do appreciate the responses that you do have, and I also appreciate you coming forward to the Area Forum time and time again. And my passing notes is perhaps we need to communicate better, perhaps in Hounslow Matters, in some of the things that you're doing, some of the works that you're doing, and I appreciate that you've already responded to some of those comments that I've already put, but I think if more people are aware of how you do things, the satisfaction levels will probably be increased. So I want to thank you for being so helpful, especially with the litter picking stuff that we do here. But there's still a lot more work that we need to be doing, and I'm sure you're aware of that already. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay. And now we move on to agenda item 7, which is the mold and dump issue. And again, we're going to try and get this on record, but this item, we'd like to invite Oksana Stratton, Head of Tenancy Management Housing, to give an update on repairs and treatment. I see the room is kind of emptying, but this is going to go on record, and hopefully we can get some pressing questions on this. So, Oksana, thank you so much for staying.
No, that's okay. So, in regards to the repairs, dump and mold, across the borough, we've received from April 2022 up till September 24, 5,707 reports, out of which 518 are for Chiswick area. 2,080 were inspected, 3,627 had works completed, and 4,082 properties which had multiple works carried out, so not just dump and mold. And it's just to reassure everyone that the council is committed in ensuring that the residents live in a safe and healthy, decent homes. We've got a Healthy Home Task Force, which was introduced July 2023, and added an extra 1 million to try and address the issue of dump and mold. I've managed to speak with asset management, and they are willing to attend the next forum to do a presentation on the Healthy Home program and have all the leaflets, workshops available for the residents to see how is best to treat and tips on tackling the dump and mold. There are dedicated, on the Hounslow website, there are links how to report dump and mold if you are tenant, if you are private resident, a PSL, or if you're in a housing of multiple occupation. So all of that in there, as long as you go into the hounslow.gov.uk, sorry, yes, hounslow.gov.uk, report a problem. That's for private leases. And then hounslow.gov.uk for HMO, house with multiple occupants. The residents can report via the repairs line. Also contacted the tenancy officer. Were there any particular questions you want
Yes, I'll start this off. Oksana, thank you so much for that. as I said at the beginning of the open forum, that we are here as servants of the public, and time again, the public residents email us, after, again to what Councillor Peter Thompson mentioned earlier, having had tried themselves to do something with the council, with the officers, it hasn't worked, and then they're coming to us as last resort. We shouldn't be doing the job of officers who receive these complaints or concerns. How are we measuring whatever inquiries come in and turning them around? Because it shouldn't be coming to us. If we're both servants of the public, you should be able to serve the public without our intervention.
Are you relating to damp and mold inquiries?
Damp and mold, yes, specifically, but also in other issues to do with housing.
Okay, any issues in regards to housing, tenancy, housing management, yes, this should not be the way. You should be able to contact your tenancy officer or relevant managers to address those. However, if there are incidents where this happened, please let me know. I will look into it, because shouldn't be the way. In terms of repairs and addressing damp and mold, as this doesn't sit directly under myself, it predominantly sits with asset management, with Healthy Homes project work and our repairs team. So I guess any inquiry regarding the damp and mold would go directly to them, either repairs, who will be looked by the asset management. So again, at the next forum, more than welcome to invite them, but I can go back and ask.
Yeah, Councillor Gerald McGregor.
Good evening, nice to see you.
Nice to see you.
Can I ask a quick question? How many tenants withhold their rent as a result of a failure to meet the habitable homes standard?
I am not aware of any.
Not aware of any?
No, not from the top of my head.
Okay, well now, Chiswick is known for its high water table because of its proximity to the Thames. So we've got a large number of estates, and I have constant problems with a couple of estates in my ward where residents complain about inappropriate damp treatment. What standard for damp proofing do you have, or do you apply a different standard depending on the circumstance?
So again, this is a technical question which I won't be able to answer. Like I said, this is predominantly managed by asset management, but I can take it back. But if you have specific addresses, which then well, please feel free to send them over to me.
I'll quick follow up. Okay, yes, I have a lot of specific addresses because Homefields Ward is particularly damp. And so we find a very large number of inquiries coming to us when we come to the surgery. What I will do is I will email you.
Yes, please.
Yeah, and then you'll be staggered.
Yes, absolutely. And I wouldn't be discussing individual cases in open forums anyway.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? I just want to go on record to say I shouldn't really be singling out officers, but Oksana Stratton, you've been one of the best officers we've had in Chiswick, and long may your tenure continue, because you were very responsive, and thanks for coming here. Last time you were here, I know a really bad thing happened. You know, so we want to thank you so much for
thank you.
the work you do.
Always happy to come.
Is there anything that we can do to help?
No,
Fantastic.
I'm very happy.
No, you've been brilliant, and we want to say thank you on behalf of Chiswick Area Forum. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Oh, okay. I just wanted to introduce Courtney Smith. She is the Housing and Tenancy Service Manager. So if anything, Courtney is also as good as I am. So yes, feel free to contact her as well.
Oksana, thank you so much. From bottom of our hearts, you do so much work. And welcome, Courtney. Okay. To agenda item 2, actually, the minutes. Just going through the minutes of the last meeting, is there anything outstanding that anything that steps out that we'll agree in the minutes? Agreed. Okay. And then we move on to any other business. Ask a question? I do apologize. I'm really sorry. Yeah. Any other business? Any urgent business? Okay. I then declare that.
enough concerns or enough concerns or ask the needs of people, so we can organize something to make that need.
Absolutely right. And as Councillor McGregor mentioned, if we can get a petition, you get our support. Thank you so much.
Let me know, I will involve.
Okay. And the meeting is now closed. Our next meeting will be on the 11th of December, 2024. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for attending. Chris, thank you for standing there quietly listening. I'm going to pick your brains after this. Thank you very much.